I'm back. And as promised, I have a special guest today. It's our boy, Johnny Dell, in the building. Johnny Dell's Football Academy. If you haven't gone and subscribed to Johnny Dell's Football Academy on YouTube, you are missing out on some of the best 49er breakdown tapes that exist in the world. And he's going to be on the show, and we're about to talk Niners, preseason, regular season, and postseason. Let's go.
This is
the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my esteemed co-host and special guest,
Johnny Dell.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How have you guys been?
Good, man. Really good. Just gearing up for the season. As you know, Raymond is out of town. He has left us for Hawaii. Neither of us got the invite, so here we are. We are now recording the GoldCast without him, and we're going to start today. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack, so let's start first with preseason. What were your overall thoughts? You got to see the rookies. You got to see Trey Lance, and let's just start with your overall thoughts about preseason, and then we're going to go from there into all the big topics.
You know, preseason, I saw what you were hoping for, and that was the offense ran pretty well. You see in getting guys back. I mean, 2020 just decimated our roster as far as injuries, and so it's nice seeing some familiar faces back. It's also good seeing that they've added depth in different places, and the secondary is a little bit of a question mark to me, just because we're looking at starting corner that we're not necessarily going to be really familiar with. We're also looking at some D-line in the middle that we're not 100% sure about. So that'll be interesting to see how it goes. Plus a defensive coordinator that hasn't actually been in that role before. We know that he's been a coach in this system before, but how will he do when it comes to calling plays? One thing Saleh was great at was his timing of play calls, and will that affect anything? As far as offense, I think we saw what this offense can be this year. I'm not sure. Like the third preseason game, we saw a lot of Trey Lance and Jimmy switching back and forth. I don't know if that's going to be the plan during the regular season, but I think that's the point, that we don't know. I think the point of that was to make sure that no defensive coordinator in the league can go into a game without the doubt that that might happen. And they have to prepare for that. And that's why Kyle Shanahan's still mum, even though Trey Lance has a fractured finger or, a bone chip in his finger about who the starter is. I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be anybody but Jimmy Garoppolo. But why give a defensive coordinator any lack of doubt? So overall, I liked it. I liked what I saw from Trey Lance. There were some good moments. There's some things that we see why as we said before the draft and after the draft, he's raw. He's going to need some development. There's just things that aren't there yet. That's not a knock on him. A lot of people want to expect a lot out of the number 3 overall pick, right? But there's some places he's got to go, and so far I liked what I've seen as far as everything.
Yeah, I like what I've seen too, and I feel like with each game, he has improved and exponentially. Like he's making leaps and bounds. He's clearly he understands every issue that he had in the previous game, he's trying to fix in the second game. And I really did feel like he evolved very quickly over the course of the 3-week preseason. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think, the first week he had the big play and everybody was really excited about that, which was a play that we've run a number of times. I remember Jimmy Garoppolo hit George Kittle for a 50-plus yard touchdown against Green Bay the first time we met him in 2019. But it was a great play by Lance, not taking anything away from him. But we're seeing him run our offense. When him and Jimmy are not switching, when he was just in there, Kyle was having him run our offense. And that's what I like seeing, because that's what he's got to do. I don't see Kyle trying to tailor his offense around Trey Lance. I see him adding what Trey Lance can do to his offense. And so in the end, he's got to be able to run the offense, and he was showing improvement in that in a number of areas. Of course, he's still got a ways to go. But it's a good sign when you're seeing improvement. If you're seeing no improvement, like maybe another rookie we shall not name from the Chicago area, then that's not always the best sign. But overall, I was very pleased with what I saw from Lance.
I was too. Now, here's a question, because I know we're on Twitter. We go back and forth on Twitter all the time. We see what's happening all the time with 49ers Twitter. There is a heavy group that want to see Trey started now. They want to see Jimmy bench now. You know, there's you've got Jimmy guys, you got Trey Lance guys, and then I think you have you and I who are in the middle who are more level-headed, who are like, listen, we'll take the best quarterback available right now and the guy who can perform at the best. I don't really care if it's Jimmy or Trey. I feel like you and I are probably in that same camp. But what did you think seeing the two compared? First of all, let's go here first. In fact, I want to hear this first. What did you think of Jimmy's preseason?
As far as Jimmy's preseason, I think, there was nothing in it that blew you away. Nothing in it that would make you think he doesn't have it. I mean, it's also his preseason. We know what Jimmy Garoppolo can do. We've seen him in this offense. So I don't think there was as many question marks. You know, it's kind of, you'd like him to suddenly show, a lot, but he's also wasn't playing with the whole starting offensive line for a couple games. They're not going to try and run the plays, I think, that will be the shot plays that they're going to run. So we're not going to see those. What we saw was what we normally expect to see from 80 to 90% of our offense, which is a lot of running and efficient third down play. That's what you generally see. So I don't think there's really much to take away as far as from Jimmy from preseason. I mean, I just think he's already shown in the seasons, that he's played the actual season games that he's played more than we would ever see from preseason.
Okay, I like that. So then let's go back to where I was going to go originally. Trey versus Jimmy. Where do you fall on this? I mean, I feel like you've already hinted at this, but let's really outline this and put a point on it. Trey Lance starting week 1. Trey Lance versus Jimmy. Trey's better than Jimmy. Where do you land on this Trey versus Jimmy debate that we see on Twitter virtually every day, all in our feeds the entire time we're on there?
Yeah, I think the debate is quite hot. I think it got really hot after the second preseason game, calmed down a little bit after the third preseason game. Trey didn't look, as far as numbers wise, he didn't have the touchdown throws. He didn't have, had a couple rough throws. Not on Twitter, but in other forums, I've been called a Jimmy Homer. So, I think some people, if I say I was down the middle, would call me a liar. But I don't see myself as a Jimmy Homer. I see myself as I want us to win, and I want us to win now. I think we're built to win. And this has been my, you remember, it's been my stance since before the draft that I felt like if we drafted Trey Lance, that we were not going to be competing for a Super Bowl if he's starting. I've said that for a long time, and nothing I've seen changes that, what I believe on that. Why? Because the guy had less than 300 passing attempts in college. That's not his fault. That doesn't mean he's a bad prospect. That means that he's an inexperienced guy. He also didn't play in an offense this complex, that had this large of a playbook, that has this much, not only in the passing game, but has as many checks and everything as we have in the run game. So there's a lot for him to absorb, and he didn't get the entire preseason that everybody else gets. So he didn't have some of those moments. There's a lot for him to absorb. There's things that he has to work on just from dropping back from under center. When he was at North Dakota, there was not a lot of five step in a hitch, 7-step drops from under center that we do sometimes. Okay. So he's got to learn where one issue I saw in the first and second preseason games was he was taking the wrong depth of drop. That means that those are types of drops that he hasn't taken before. And so that was leading to a couple sacks. You could see the tackle taking a short set, which means he's expecting a shorter, more shallow drop, so that the defensive end has to go around the tackle, and that's beyond where the quarterback is set, and he was dropping too far back. I saw that both tackles would take short sets. That means it's going to be a short drop for the quarterback. And he was a little bit deep in his drops and it led to a sack. That is something that takes time and repetition in practice, not in games, to get down. He's got to work on his footwork tied to the routes. He's got to work on some throwing mechanics. He's got to work on identifying defenses from pre to post snap, and also when it's not in a preseason vanilla defense. I mean, I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, and we've seen different guys do different things. I remember a couple years ago against the Broncos in preseason threw like everything they had at us. But we've mostly seen pretty vanilla defenses through preseason, and teams aren't game planning for Trey Lance. They will if he starts. That's a lot to throw in a rookie, especially a guy who hasn't had a lot of experience. It's not that I don't think Trey Lance can be a phenomenal quarterback. That story has so much farther to go before it's written. And so do I think that he can add things to the run game? Absolutely. We saw that in the third preseason game, that when you can bring him in and you can present a threat, that does open different things up in the run game. But you can't do that and take away from every other part of your game and every other part of your offense, especially an offense that you've had around for 4 years. And that the idea is, especially with the wide zone that we run, it's all about repetition over and over and over and over again. There was a fabulous article I read recently about O-line coaches, and especially O-line coaches who can teach the wide zone, and how it's a long-term commitment, because you have to have that system in place for years before it really starts to click. Okay? So are we going to then throw out a lot of that and the plays that are attached to it because we have Trey Lance in and we just want to get him in? If we do that, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not actually coming out ahead. It's a wash. It's like moving water around in a bathtub and saying we've put more water in. No, you just took water from one side of the bathtub and dumped it over here. We may get more effect from Lance in some of the zone reads, but are we going to be able to move as efficiently on third down in the passing game, which is a huge thing in Shanahan's offense when you want to run the ball? It may also mean that we can't run some of the more complex double tied plays, where they'll call 2 plays in the huddle, and it's responsible for the quarterback to make several checks at the line, to actually determine what the play is going to be, what side it's going to run to. Do we have to dial some of that back because Trey's in there? I don't know, but I think Kyle has a pretty good idea. I think he's had a pretty good idea for a while, as he said in his presser. He's had an idea for a pretty long time who the starter is going to be. So to me, I see that there's a number of issues that Lance has that can be fixed in practice, that can be fixed while not playing. Issues that come with footwork and with dropbacks and depths of dropbacks, mechanics, things like that that can be improved on away from the football field. Okay, guys do get better playing. That's something we've seen, but I would rather see him fix the things that are harder to fix on the fly during the season this year than be thrown in just to be thrown in. I think there's a lot of fans who just want to see the flash. And they want the sizzle, but they don't want the steak. They're bored with the steak. They want the sizzle.
Yeah.
For me, I'd rather have the steak of a Super Bowl, a steak of winning more games than we lose. I'm tired of sitting here as a fan, watching us lose week after week. One thing we know is that when Jimmy Garoppolo plays, we tend to win.
Yep, I totally agree. I'm with you 100% on that. And I think the Niners believe that they're in their Super Bowl window right now, rightfully so, especially with how stacked this team is offensively and defensively. I believe the 49ers can compete for a Super Bowl right now, and I believe they can win with Jimmy G. I believe they can go back to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, and the reason I know this is because Jimmy G's already taken them to the Super Bowl, so that's already happened before. And so let's get into that. Let's start looking ahead to the season. Overall, how competitive do you expect the 49ers to be in this year coming up?
I think to expect us anywhere outside of the top 4 would be inaccurate. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is I expect us to be a top 4 team in the NFC. I expect us to be competing for a Super Bowl late in the year. The team has a lot of talent. Last year, our issue was not talent. Our issue was keeping our talent on the field. We couldn't do that. And it wasn't just Jimmy G. I mean, people say Jimmy G's had health issues. Everybody had health issues last year. Debo had health issues last year. Kittle had health issues last year. Trent Williams was out for 3 games last year. We had the offensive Yeah, Mostert couldn't stay on the field. I mean, we were down to our fifth string running back at times. Our corners couldn't stay healthy. Tart couldn't stay healthy. We had D lineman who couldn't stay healthy. I mean, it was just because you had Solomon Thomas go down with the ACL, you had Bosa go down with the ACL, and then you had guys getting nicked up all over the place. I mean, we were on our third string center for a lot of the year because Richburg never made it back. I mean, we were expecting him to be back, and he never made it back, and then retired. So D Ford was gone almost the entire year. I mean, to the point that people thought he was going to retire. And here he is looking like he might be back this year. Let's see if he can last
on wood.
all,
Knock on
all
wood.
year. Yeah. But our issue was not talent on the team. It was having the talent on the field. And that will be the number one deciding factor for this year is, does this team stay healthy? In 2019, we stayed relatively healthy. We had guys miss time. I mean, we had our tackles miss time. We had running backs get dinged up here and there. Sherman was dinged up in and out during the year, and Kittle missed a couple games. But if we can stay healthy, I fully expect us to be competing. Fully expect us, and that's with Jimmy G in there. People say, well, they can't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. I've seen that on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it. I've seen it posted everywhere else. And that Kyle knows he can't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. If Kyle felt that he couldn't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, then he would not be on the team. This team is too talented to sit here and that makes zero. It just makes zero sense to me, because either that means that your team is talented, but you don't think you can still win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, so you're going to play him anyways, even though Trey might give you a better chance, but that doesn't make sense. So why are you playing anybody this year outside of Trey Lance? Like, that doesn't make any sense. If you don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, then why is Jimmy even on the team? That just doesn't make sense. You don't pay somebody $25 million to lead you not into a Super Bowl. I also remember back to before the 2020 season, everyone was calling it the revenge tour, because the players talked about how Kyle went through and showed every play that could have been made at the end, and all the things that they needed to do, and how easy it would have been for them to win the Super Bowl. And I sit here and think, anybody who sits here and tries to lay all of that at Jimmy Garoppolo's feet, if it was literally Kyle Shanahan sitting in the meeting room with the whole team showing Jimmy Garoppolo just, crap in the bucket while in the Super Bowl, he would have lost the whole team right there. Like, you would not have the support of your teammates if they showed 7 minutes of Jimmy Garoppolo just dropping the ball.
His low light reel
in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, let's think about that. Okay, Kyle Shanahan puts it up to the whole team. This is all that needs to happen to win a Super Bowl, and we didn't do it. If it's all sitting there talking about Jimmy Garoppolo didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't do that, nobody on that team would have any faith in him anymore. You would not see the kind of support that you've seen for 2 years for the guy. So again, I think it's just a lazy take to me to say this team can't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. I don't buy that for 1 second. So for me, I want to see the 49ers win, and I want to see a lot of games, and I want to see us still talking about them in a positive way, because they're still playing in late January. I don't like sitting in late January knowing that our season has been over for 3 months. Nobody wants that. None of us want that. Okay? So if we're just sitting here saying Lance has got to get in there, I don't know. And I think the 49ers are built to win, just like you said.
I think so too. And I completely agree. I think we're built to win. I think we're built to win now. I think Jimmy G can take us there. I want to ask you one final question. Is this the season that we finally see the injury bug reverse in the opposite direction? I mean, now I know that we have no crystal ball. There's no way to see that. But even in 2019, we were the 6th most injured team in the league. I mean, at some point, we've been in the top 3 most injured since 2014. I mean, at some point, this has to end, right? We can't keep this statistic forever.
It all depends on if they've found out whether or not Levi's is built on an old Indian burial ground. I mean, the curse has to come from somewhere. It's somewhere. Ever since they built Levi's, we cannot stay healthy. and it doesn't make any sense. You would think at some point, we would at least be middle of the pack, at least. And it just hasn't happened yet. I hope so. If we are, we will go far. But if it's, the past predicts the future, it's not looking great. But as a fan, I'm gonna have to sit here and look at it and say, "This is the year. This is the year." That's what we always have to say. This is the year. We'll see how it comes around week 10.
Yeah, exactly.
But I hope this is the year. I mean, there's too much talent to not see them on the field, and it gets frustrating.
It does get frustrating. It's frustrating to feel like the team's lack of success under Shanahan's regime is really, really kind of been no fault of anyone's, but torn ACLs and high ankle sprains. Last thing. Right now, just off the top of your head, what is our final record going into the postseason?
12-5. I believe 12-5 will be our record. I think a few injuries, key injuries, pop up at a bad time in some winnable games, and we end up with 12-5. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How much do you expect every single Jimmy Garoppolo throw to be analyzed to the nth degree this season?
Jimmy is going to get ripped to shreds for his average one interception a game average that he has. He's going to get ripped to shreds about it. They're going to act as if he didn't do this in the 2019 season when he did. I think that if Jimmy has a blunder of a game, any one game, you're going to hear the 49er faithful just lose it and clamor for Trey Lance to come in. I think Jimmy G has a level of pressure against the fan base that he's never had before. He was the chosen one in 2019, and all we just wanted to do was see him play. And he tore his ACL against the Chiefs the year before, and oh man, poor Jimmy. And then in 2020, it was like, again, we lose you again. And then it went from poor Jimmy to agitation, like we need to do something about Jimmy. And then this year, now you have Trey Lance, and now it's like, well, now you need to prove it or sit down, Jimmy. So it's like we've had 4 different relationships with him. The one we were super sad, the one we were pumped for his return, angry at his injury, and now it's put up or shut up. That's how the fan base is. Like every year, it's been a completely different relationship with the faithful and Jimmy. And I think this year, he probably has more pressure from them than anybody else. I mean, I don't even think the team is putting the level of pressure of expectation on him that the faithful is. I think the 49ers faithful are just ready to pounce on him. The ones that are in such support. I saw online yesterday someone saying, we could save a ton of cap space if we just got rid of one player, and you all know who I'm talking about. I was like, okay. And then someone wrote in the comments, it was like, okay, but what on earth are we going to do with that cap space right now? Like, what are we going to do with that money? I almost want to type, listen, that's not your money. Is it? Is it your money? Like, what do you care about the cap space for? It's not your money.
Go sign Tom Compton.
Yeah. What are we going to do right now? The season's in 10 days. What are we going to do with that money? And so I think there is that kind of high anxiety fever pitch cry for wanting Trey on the field. But I'm with you. I want him to sit for a year. I think the Trey Lance we get at the beginning of next season is going to be a whole different guy than the one that we have here. This is a kid who's learning. This is a kid who's hungry. This is a kid who is working hard. And he's not even, I mean, you've listened to the press conferences. He's not even interested in taking the job right now. Really, what he wants to do is learn and absorb and get himself to the level where he can take the job. And I think even he recognizes and is coming with a real strong sense of humility that I didn't quite expect from him. I was actually really surprised when I've heard him in all the press conferences week after week. And you really get the sense of his humble approach to the system. And you really get that he understands the enormity of the task in front of him. And that really, really what he's here to do right now is to learn, absorb, and get better and prepare for when the bell calls, So, and I really get that impression from him. I don't think he has any expectations, and I really believe him when he says that. And I think that if the 49ers faithful is just patient for just 1 year. Just give him one full season to learn. The guy we see next preseason is going to be the guy that they think they're getting this year, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't. If he was starting week 1, the wheels would come off fairly quickly. Maybe he'd win a couple games, maybe even 2 or 3 games in a row, but it would start to catch up very quickly. You know, these little mistakes that you're doing in preseason. My father, the unofficial 4th member of the GoldCast, Rudy Jr., always says this. He says, what you're good at in preseason, or what you're great at in preseason, you might be average to good in the regular season. But what you're bad at in the preseason, you're going to be really bad at that in the regular season. So the things that we're seeing from Trey right now, as you said, against vanilla defenses and against a mix of first, second, and third stringers out there, those mistakes will be exploited at a whole nother level once he's going against starting teams, once he's going against the likes of Pete Carroll's Seahawks, Sean McVay's Rams, Green Bay Packers. Once he starts going against the big boys and the teams, especially the bloodbath that is the NFC West, oh, we'd see those wheels come off much faster than we want to, and then everyone would be clamoring for Jimmy G again. But I think if you give him a year and you let him learn the system, get the kinks out that you're saying, like a lot of what you're talking about is really about mechanics, right? It's just mechanics. Mm-hmm. It's just tightening the bolts. It's just learning rhythm. It's just learning a little bit of pace. That stuff's solvable. You know, it's not like we've had issues with previous quarterbacks who can't make it through their reads. I mean, you could see him going through his reads. Even right now, he's going through his reads right there in preseason. It's not like that. You know, it's not like we've had other quarterbacks that were very successful that couldn't even do some of the basic mechanics that Trey Lance is already showing right now. But the kid only played 3 games in 500 days. Like, give him some time. I mean, I think he's going to be badass. And I've really come around to him over the preseason. I was very apprehensive, but more and more as I've watched him play, I've become very impressed with his ability and just seeing the exponential growth. And so, but for me, I'm like, let him sit. All right. Here's my final question. If it's up to you and me, this is exactly how it's going to go down this year. So this is a question we will have to answer if we have our way. Niners win the Super Bowl. Jimmy G's hoisting the Lombardi. Maybe he gets Super Bowl MVP, maybe not. Doesn't really matter. What do they do if Jimmy G takes them and they win the Super Bowl? Does Trey Lance start or does he sit longer?
Well, let me ask, did Jimmy Garoppolo start when another quarterback was winning Super Bowls in New England?
Nope.
I mean, to me, if you've had a quarterback that can take you through a season and win a Super Bowl, isn't that the point? So why are you making a change just to make a change? You know, Alex Smith didn't get traded from Kansas City because he won a Super Bowl. He got traded from Kansas City because they had a guy he couldn't get past the playoffs, and they felt they had a guy who could get them past the playoffs. Okay? If Jimmy Garoppolo shows for a second time that he can take the team to the Super Bowl, and if we win, why on earth would you move on? Isn't that the goal in this game? I mean, didn't Bill Walsh trade 2 second-round picks for a quarterback named Steve Young, and he sat for a while? Couldn't take the job from Joe because why? Joe kept winning Super Bowls. If you win a Super Bowl, I don't think there's any reason to move on from your guy. Remember, the only quarterback who's ever been traded after he won a Super Bowl was Trent Dilfer. Are we really gonna say that Jimmy Garoppolo is Trent Dilfer? And how did that work out for the Ravens?
Exactly.
I mean, they started Elvis Gerback, who we knew. And I mean, to me, that answers itself.
I like it. Johnny, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Can I ask you one more question?
Let's do it.
I know.
Let's do it. No, let's do it.
But I don't think you get asked many questions. I want to ask you a question. This will be a simple one. Who do you think is under more pressure this year? Do you think Jimmy is under more pressure, or do you think Alex Smith in 2010 was under more pressure? Because that was the year we got the "We Want Carr" chance. Yeah. Who do you think's under more pressure to perform? 2010 Alex or 2021 Jimmy?
Oof. Man, that's a good one. I'm going to say it's probably Jimmy. And here's why. Because Jimmy, and I don't think this is fair, so I'm going to preface that immediately right now. I don't think this is fair. Jimmy has been seen as someone who's lost us a Super Bowl. He has now moved into the Colin Kaepernick bracket, of which there was only one other quarterback until Jimmy. And I think that we want Carr, sure, but Carr wasn't on the team. Trey Lance is on the team. Trey Lance has had a couple of great flashes. There's like there's 3 plays that everyone keeps repeating over and over in their brain and on YouTube and are convincing themselves that all 3 of those plays are going to be the only plays they get every down from this guy if he were to start today. I think Jimmy is probably under more pressure. I think so. Do I think the fans will? I don't think the fans will be as volatile, mainly because I think Jimmy's a better quarterback than Alex Smith. And if you go back to Alex, right? Like I always talk about this. Alex Smith, his third down conversion rate was horrific. I mean, you had 2 plays to get to first down, and if you didn't get there, it was over. And that carried with him all the way to Kansas City. You had 2 chances at a first down, and if you didn't get it in those first 2, it was over. His third down conversion rate was bottom barrel of the league his entire career. Secondly, he could never throw for 300 yards. Never. There was one game, I can't remember what game it was, and I don't remember if it was with the Chiefs or the Niners. But one of his best games, he got to 299. He was 1 yard off 300. And even my dad, we were talking, he was like, man, he just cannot get to 300 yards passing. This man cannot do it. And
that was the game against New Orleans in the playoffs where we had the catch 3.
Was it that
he
one?
Finished like 298 or 299 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, which is still my favorite playoff game of the last 10 years. That's my favorite one. That was just classic 49ers. And that's the difference, is that I think Jimmy has the ability, and I think will most likely silence a lot of the haters very quickly. If he, especially if he plays at the level that we know he's capable of. If we're at 5-0 and Jimmy's rolling, the pressure will ease off a lot. But if he starts to have a rocky season, I think it's going to turn really, really intense. But right now I think he has more pressure because I think people already see him as a loser. I mean, I guess and I don't think he's a loser at all. I even hate saying that term. I don't want it to get taken out of context. But I think people see him as someone who's lost a Super Bowl. And in San Francisco, the price for losing us a Super Bowl is your head. You must be banished from the team forever. And because how dare you not stand next to Steve Young and Joe Montana? That's all we will accept in San Francisco is a Super Bowl ring. And to lose one, you kind of lose you lose the fan base in a big way. And Alex Smith, while people were annoyed and they were really frustrated with him, he hadn't lost a Super Bowl for us. He'd kind of always just been average, or people saw him as average or mediocre. But I don't think there was the same level of vitriol that they have for Jimmy G. What do you think?
I think it's real close.
It's close.
Because if you remember, the Carr that they were talking about wasn't Derek Carr, it was David Carr.
Yeah.
It was a failed quarterback from the Texans. Mm-hmm. And, Alex, I think the angst was the hope that we had for Alex when he was drafted. He was number 1 overall, right? This was the guy. This was the guy that was going to take us from an abysmal organization to the promised land. And it was nothing but losing seasons and 2 head coaches and injuries and everything. And I think that the fan base got so tired of the team losing, and it was all heaped on Alex. And they were tired of seeing the same mistakes, and they were tired of seeing everything. Because I remember that game. It was against the Eagles, and he missed a throw that went into nobody. It was a throw that I think he overthrew his receiver, and it hit grass. The ball didn't even touch anybody, and it was "We want Carr." Just and the level of almost hatred that we saw online and everything against Alex. Now, online wasn't as big of a thing then in 2010 as it is now, but now I think you have the problem that the team is built that we know the team can win.
Yeah.
We know the team can win. Then it was hoping the team can win, and Alex was keeping us from having any sort of hope fulfilled. Here, this would be hope disappointed. And so I think the pressure is and you've also got the uphill battle that people have already written him off. And so they're waiting for him to fail. They are expecting him to fail. They want him in some level to fail because they would rather him fail now and it go to Lance than him fail in the Super Bowl again. That's what they're worried about.
Yeah, I think that is what they're worried about. But you know what? Sorry to cut you off there.
No.
You know what very few people recognize and ever admit online is that if you go back and watch that Super Bowl, it was a team-wide collapse. I can point to 5 or 6 different moments, even on Kyle Shanahan, from Shanahan to Bosa to Jimmy G. I can name 5 different plays that if these 5 different plays are changed, or we do different things at the end of the second quarter, we probably win that game. But it literally was a team-wide collapse, and 5 or 6 plays when you're in the Super Bowl at that level, against that level of competition, all it takes is 5 plays. All it takes is 5 moments, and you're going to lose. You know, that's the Super Bowl. Many times when you have teams that are so evenly matched, like the Chiefs and the Niners were, it comes down to 2 to 5 mistakes. 2 just blunders at the wrong time in one place, because you give one edge to either team and that team is going to step on your throat. And that's exactly what happened. It was a team-wide collapse, and you can point to, like I said, about 5 different moments that had they gone differently, the Niners probably win. It was that easy. It was really right there in the right there in our hands.
Exactly. So I think Jimmy's under an incredible amount of pressure. I think it does edge out 2010 Alex. So hopefully that'll back off over the next month. We'll see.
I think it will. I think so. I think once he starts winning, I just keep going back to this. I just want New Orleans Saints Jimmy G for as many games as possible. Just give me New Orleans Saints Jimmy G. As long as I can get that Jimmy G, everyone will calm down and we'll be just fine.
I 100% agree.
And what say you, GoldCast Empire? What do you think? Is Jimmy the right guy? Oh, man, I want to hear, because I know you guys love to sound off on this. What did you think about our conversation about Jimmy G? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know, what do you think about Jimmy starting? Is this the right move? Is Trey really a year away? Let us know, youtube.com/thegoldcast. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Cisa III, and with me is my esteemed co-host, my special guest,
Johnny Dell.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Stay tuned. Stay hyphy.